Hey everyone, Paul SM, welcome to part 7 of our Fujimi 1/16 scale Porsche 959 video build. Before we get going today,
make sure you subscribe to the channel, make sure you click the little bell notifications, get notified of all our latest videos, click the like button and leave a comment. I do read and reply to all the comments and appreciate everybody that takes the time to leave a comment on the channel. And of course, if you scroll up in the description, there's a link to a big long list of all the items I use in my videos. So if you see anything, you should be able to find it in there.
So this part, to me, isn't going to be the most interesting for you guys to watch out there. Today is basically half hour or so of masking and painting. There was a lot to do. Another absolute mammoth masking task. Probably 8 hours over 2 days to do all this. There was a lot to do, but I think the end result looks good. I think it's time well spent, and I kind of put it in there as a matter of course because I think we could have left this part out or really condensed it down and got these next two parts together, because this was 7.5 hours of footage I had to edit down. 2 videos out of it, so part 7 and 8 are there. So one's going to go today, Saturday the 5th, and the other one will go up on Monday. So these are done 2 parts out of 1 series of footage. As you know, I like to get through one process or step at a time, and for me that was getting all the running gear done on the car, wheels on, and finish off the engine. And that's where we'll be at the end of part 8, which you'll see on Monday. Like I say, to lead us on to that, part 7 is basically masking and painting. So it's probably not going to be the most interesting, but you will see the ways that I've got around problems and the way I've done different things, so hopefully you can pick some tips up from it and it isn't too boring to watch. I really hope it's okay. It's literally here as a matter of course. I could have cut this right down and cut out all this, but I think it's necessary to see the process, so that's what we're going to look at today. So let's jump straight in and get to work on our running gear, suspension, brakes, and the last of the engine components. Right, so straight in, this is what we got to deal with today. Couple of pages worth of work, which turns into 8 to 10 hours of masking and painting, I'm going to guess. Yeah, so we've got a lot to do. Now off camera, I've glued these parts together. These are part of the air inlet system leading up to the cleaner box. 2 halves, so you need cleaning up, gluing together, cleaning up, and de-seaming. Same as this, the air cleaner box, all needed gluing together. So a little bit of work there already. I did that off camera because otherwise we'll be sat here watching me glue 2 parts together, which you don't need to see. There's our prop shaft or drive shaft if you're from different places, but in the UK I think most of us call those prop shafts. We've also got the intercoolers there as well, and the intake for those too. So they all need cleaning up. So we're here again, very quickly run through the cleaning up process, because I guarantee if I don't show it in the video, somebody will ask me, how do you clean up the part? So we go around, we trim all the plastic locator points off as near as possible. We've got a 400 customizable UMP sander. I like using these on flat parts because they are flat and hard, so they like to keep the flatter edge. And then we just go around and remove the rest of the screw locator point. Again, don't press really hard on the sander. Let the grit do the work and come in with an 800 to finish it off, and then we've got our buffer to get it back to clean plastic. So all the parts will be cleaned up near enough exactly like this, maybe using a sponge sander in places like we're doing here on rounded parts. We use the flat sander to get the nub off, and then we come in with the 220 grey sponge and get the remainder off. So as you can see, where the locator point's been, we'll get most of it off with the 800 thinny stick, and then come in with our sponge to round it off properly, and then come with our buffer as before. So, the suspension, the springs aren't too bad on these, the way they're done. So what we've done was sanded the edge of them very lightly with our sponge sander, but we're left with a seam right in the middle of the spring. So the way I deal with these, and this is an old trick, is to get some extra thin on a brush. We load it into the part, we let it sit for a minute, melt the plastic, and then load the brush up again and just keep brushing through the spring in the hope it will melt the seam, and then by brushing over it, we'll spread it out
and get rid of it. And it does work. Probably 90% of it will be gone on a part that's really tricky to sand or file or get anything else in there to clean up. This is the way I like to do it. So there's a few of these to do. What I didn't realise as well, there's 2 options for some of the front springs. I went and did them all and probably wasted a good half an hour doing one that we didn't use. But hey, that's by the by. I show how to do it and we get a bit of, hopefully, instructional use out of it. So yeah, do this to each one. Let that extra thin sit on there for a minute. Work it over. Get a bit more on the brush. Once it's soft, the brushing action should ease out that seam and make it near enough invisible. So we'll do that to all the spring components until we're happy that they're gone. But do sand the outer edge first, because there is a seam on the outer side first, and then come in the middle. Same on the front differential and the drive shafts on that. We've got these universal joint, I guess they're the gaiters, aren't they? They're the rubber gaiters, or boots, I suppose they are. And we're doing exactly the same to those. Now, we've got our intake, and this is a flexible rubber hose. And again, this is going to seam right through the middle where we've joined them together. A bit more tricky to deal with, and an absolute pain, to be honest. So we glued it together. We've got some molten glue squoze out of it as we clamped it together. And we're hitting it with our 220 UMP thinning sponge, just to get rid of the most of the seam. When we're happy with that, we'll come in and do the extra thin trick again to get rid of that step or any mark. And then we'll let that sit for a minute, hit it again, and repeat. And then what we'll do at the end is come in with our knife, try and rescribe a bit of detail, then hit it again with the extra thin, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it should be, for the most part, gone. Now looking at my finished pictures, it's still visible a little bit, but I think I did a pretty good job overall. As you can see, you can just about see the seam line now. Once we hit this with a bit more extra thin, give it a little bit of a light rescribe, it should start to vanish. So we've got our knife here, and I just lightly got the angled blade a little bit, and I'm just lightly rescribing in. We are going to get fresh plastic. It's going to look a bit odd. Once you hit it with the extra thin again, that'll blend it all in. And hopefully, like I say, at this stage, I don't know what it looks like. We've got fingers crossed, hoping that it'll look okay once it's all painted up. And to be fair, it didn't look too bad at all. So we're in the spray booth now. All the parts are mounted with paint. They've all been primed in UMP black primer. As you can see, there's quite a lot of them. And we've got a multitude of colours. Now, I've got to try and remember these. I think this is Tamiya. It's either LP19 or 20. I think it's LP19. It's like a gunmetal colour. Now, I looked at real pictures of the car, and I looked at the instructions, and I made up my kind of close colours I thought would look good. They're a little bit off compared to the real car, but for me, I'm happy with them. It's not too bad, but this is a good metal colour we've gone with here. Tamiya does 2 in the LP range. One's lighter and darker than the other, and one's got a little bit of a strange hue to it. This is the more normal looking one. I think this is LP19. Same on the suspension. Now we're going to do the inner strut like a titanium gunmetal colour, and then we're going to mask off and paint the springs. Same with the intercooler. These are all done in the same colour. So we are batch painting these for speed. Now, brake discs, we are doing in Tamiya matte aluminium. The number escapes me, but it's the LP matte aluminium. Looking back, the colour doesn't look bad. I think I would have gone for a bit more of a shiny colour in retrospect, but it's one of those things. And again, a few light coats, probably 2 or 3 light coats, getting all those angles, getting in there. There's 8 of them in total because you've got the fronts and backs to do. And we'll do the same for the steering hub. Front differential, we're going to do in LP5 again, as we did the back. Just a few light coats on there, 2 or 3 light coats of each, and they're all painted up. Now, some masking. These are the parts we've painted up. They've been left overnight. I think we're about our 3rd or 4th day into this now. This is how long it took to sand everything and get everything primed and painted. As you see, if I prime, I'll leave it overnight. If I paint, I'll leave it overnight. So it adds days to the process as we go. So we've got some of these new excellent Tamiya thin tapes, 1, 2 and 3 mil. Very nice tapes, as good, if not better than the Aizu, but the benefit of these is they have a plastic sleeve on the outer edge of the tape, which stops the tape picking up dust and debris off your bench, and yeah, really makes a difference. So we're going to mask up the center rubber part of this. So we get right up to the join. There is some hose clamps on there too, but we'll mask those up in a little bit. But for now, I'm just going to carefully mask right up to the edge on each side, then fill in, mask the whole thing, and we can get it painted up. There we go, each side's painted, and now we're just going around, painted. Each side is masked, and we're just going around, filling in the rest to mask it all up for paint. So like I say, a lot of masking, and I mean a lot of masking to do, probably in 2 or 3 stages, some of it as well. It was getting a bit tedious and a bit boring, but I think the end result was well worth it. Same for this, we're keeping the black on the drive shafts, and we're going for silver and rubber black on the UV joints. So again, careful masking using the, I think that's a 3mm Tamiya. Just take your time. Again, the more time spent here, the better result you're going to get. Like I say, I reckon over 2 days, this was about 8 hours worth of masking, painting, masking, painting. Oh, and a bit of sanding at the beginning as well. It did get a little bit tedious and a bit boring, but we stuck with it. We got through it. And as you'll see in the next part, it didn't look too bad altogether. So like I say, this one's going out today, Saturday. The next one will be out on Monday. And then we can really progress and get this build done. Now, we've used the display circle cutter to cut a circle. We then cut that in half, and this goes around where the drive shafts meet the transmission. As you can see, this is the kind of masking and talking about that hopefully someone will pick up a few hints and tips. It just makes life a little bit easier. So we did the circle size on the display to roughly the size we thought the drive shafts were hitting the transmission. Cut it in half, put one half on the top, one half on the bottom. Bob's your uncle. Everyone's a winner. Job done. There we go. A lot quicker and simple than mucking around wrapping tape around it. A nice solution. Now we've got a mixture of Aizu and Tamiya, and what we're going to do, these are the suspension struts and springs we painted earlier. Because of the scale of the kit, we can get the, I think this is the 0.4 Aizu tape right in the centre. So the plan is we'll mask all this up, spray the springs, unmask it, and we should be able to see our gunmetal struts inside, or well, shocks they are really, aren't they? So though it can be a little bit tedious, it's time well spent, and the result at the end looks really good, so it's well worth it. So just get the bottom in, get it in happy you want it, and then grab your tweezers and just wrap it around. It's a bit tricky to get in, but it is doable. There we go, just get it in the end, poke it in with the tweezers, grab the tape, and then lightly wrap it around, pull it on ever so slightly so you pull it into the spring. It's like fine brain surgery. And there we go. We can wrap that one, and wrap the other. I actually found it easy to use the tweezers in the end to pull it through. And there we go. As you see, it is tricky to do, but it is more than doable. There we go. We're coming a little bit closer on a different part to have a look. I thought I'd show you my struggle and then realise that the tweezers are a much easier way of doing it. But just take your time. Whether you've got the patience to do this, if you haven't, you can always just brush paint the springs or brush paint the centres or whatever you want to do. But for me, this was the solution I chose. And it was well worth doing. It really, really was.
And there we go. Once we get to the top, we'll pull it tight in, trim it off, push the end in, and then move on to the, I think there's 6 of these in total. Sadly, one of them wasn't really needed, and I spent the time doing this. But hey, it's a learning curve, and I'm sure somebody will pick the different versions. You get 2 different suspension types. So if you're watching this, bear in mind when you come to your build to pick which one you want, so you don't waste any time doing what I did. But there we go. So like I say, a lot of masking done on this, a lot of masking tape used, a lot of patience tested, that is for sure. Once you're happy you go to the right length, give it a trim, and just push the end in to the spring. Once it's all painted up, you can put a wash in there or whatever to highlight everything a bit more. Just make sure everything's lined up. And there we go. Jobs are good. So there you go. 1 down, 5 more to go. So there's me chatting to somebody going, yeah, I've just done this, blah, blah, blah. Here we go. Right, onto the discs. Now, calipers are built in. You got front and back calipers and disc as well. So we need to paint the hub in the center. We need to paint the top of the hub and the caliper itself. So try and think of a way to do it. I thought I'd go with my circle cutter. So a couple of spins on this. And then we're going to cut right up to the very edge. Got a brand new blade. Carefully peel it up off the bench. And hopefully that should roughly fit where we want it. So we got the rough diameter for the center hub. So this should then cover it. Then we'll grab our tweezers. Push it all home. Give it a little stretch and a pull as and where needed. Line it all up, and there we go. Fold it over. If there's any other place that need masking near the caliper, use a bit of the thin tape again. But on this one, we got it pretty much spot on straight away. So again, 4 more of these to do. You got the fronts and the backs, sadly. Just one of those things. So we've got a little bit of tape there. We're going to pop it in that gap there. All the rest of those are done. And we move on to our air cleaner box. Now, this has got rubber straps over the top to hold it shut. And you can also see the air filter gasket edge through the front as well. You can choose whether you do the orangey colour of air filters. I chose to do black. So we're going to mask it all up carefully like this. There are some nice panel lines to follow, which is quite handy. And again, time taken here pays off in the end. This is a highly visible part when the engine cover's open. And there we go. Once we've got all the outer bits done, we can get the infills done. So these are ready for paint now. As you can see, all those parts are masked off. A lot of work. We've already done the central hubs. Of the brakes, we've done LP, I think it was 19 on those again, gunmetal. And now we've got a silver to do as well. So this is the matte aluminium we used on the brake discs. I'm just going to spray up all what I think are UV joints, which should have a gaiter or boot on them too. So we'll spray the rubber on those later. But 2 or 3 light coats of this. It's thinned with the Tamiya non-retarder lacquer thinner, because we don't need the retarder effect on the metallic work. Like I say, a couple of coats on each, job done, and we'll spray up all the components as needed, which is these drive shafts, the springs, and a few other bits and bobs as well. We've got Tamiya rubber black now, which I think is LP63. And what we're going to do, we're going to mix that up again with some of that non-retarder, because we want it to be as matte as we can, and we're also going to add a little bit of the LP flat base into it as well to try and get a much more matte look. to give a bit of tone of variation between the bright shiny metal, and I want this to look like a real rubber strap. So we're going to mix this up. It's funny stuff, this flat base, always has been. It's very, very thick, and it doesn't like to mix in itself, so I tend to just whiz it up, get a bit of the liquid mixed, pour that in. As you can see, I do add quite a bit because I want this to be really nice and matte. Give this a good mix up, and hopefully this will give us a very nice matte rubber effect. And there we go. So we're going to do the flexible hoses on the air intakes. And then we'll do the rubber CV gaiters and the rubber straps over the air cleaner too. Now, as you can see, like I said, we've painted the brake discs already. We also added a central circular piece of masking. There's no point respraying it when the original colour was good. So we should have some good tone of variation on these discs of about 3 colours. Once we get the calipers painted, it should look good. But let's get all these rubber colours done. And there we go. Everything base painted. A multitude of colours, mostly what we talked about there. And it's time to unmask. So hours and hours of masking over a couple of days is going to be undone in literally a couple of minutes. And we're going to see how well our masking job did. So we carefully ease off the masking. All this tape is detacked before it goes on. So hopefully we should all be good. Just take your time here. If you're using tweezers like I am, make sure you don't scratch anything, because it just undoes all your hard work. So far, so good. Once we get a wash in this, it should hopefully look pretty decent. A quick look, yeah, it looks good so far. There we go, nice sharp demarcation lines. And a nice contrast, that was the word I was looking for, contrast, between the shiny metal and the nice flat rubber black that we put on there. Let's have a quick check around. Yeah, all looks good. Just these 3 front parts to get off. It's easier said than done, especially when you're on camera trying to do it for an audience. There we go. 2. And the final one. And there we go. Quick inspection, and it's pretty much perfect. It looks really, really good. Last bit off the back. Come on, you tricky bugger. There we are. Nice crisp, clean demarcations. Happy with that. No overspray, no bleed through at all. Absolutely spot on. Happy with that. Nice rubber colour as well. Really suits the part. Yep, there we go. Fantastic. So, we need to mask off for the hose clamps on this rubber hose. So again, same process as before. Bit of, I think this is the 1mm Tamiya. Line it up, wrap it round. We'll do both sides. Fill in the inside and outside, but we don't need paint. Spray it in some of the matte aluminium again. Unmask, and the job's a good one. So, like I said, it may not be the most interesting video to watch, but it's kind of a process that needs to be shown, I think. As people would ask, how did I do that? What did he use? So here it is. You can see it in the most part. Sadly, to make a 34-minute video, we wasted about 6 hours of footage here, but it's literally the camera's running the whole time I'm building, and I have to pick and choose all the relevant areas to show and what to cut out. So there we go. There's those mounted. And again, we're back in
with the rubber black. This is from the night before. Spraying up those CV gaiters or boots. Again, couple of coats on each, couple of light coats, and then onto the silver for our hose clamps. As you see on the bench, I do have a sheet that I wrote down all the colours I wanted to use. There's no colour actual real numbers apart from the LP19 I've written down here and there. The rest of it is just a colour I was thinking, and I chose it appropriately. Now the calipers, the standard calipers are black. I thought it was a little bit bland and boring. So I thought, let's spice it up a bit and let's go red. So this is Tamiya LP7. Thinned with the lacquer thinner with retarder. 0.35 needle apex and about 18 psi. I would probably 3 or 4 very light coats just to build up the colour. It's well masked off. We masked it off camera. Everywhere is covered that we painted earlier in the gunmetal. So yeah, we did all that off camera because you didn't need to see that again. But like I say, 3 or 4 light coats, making sure we get even coverage, and we're all done. Time to unmask. So these springs, let's see how these look. Like I say, hours of work undone in seconds. But you tell me, was that time well spent? I think it was. It looks really good. So everything's unmasked. We checked everything. What we're going to do now is get our caliper decals on. Now these were badly yellowed. Really badly yellowed decals. So the normal trick of this is stick them in the window in the sun, but it's winter, there's no sun. So I went and bought one of these UV lights off Amazon. Cost me £18. The decals were under this for about 50 hours over 3 days, I would say. It sounds excessive, but it costs like 5p a day to run. And it did work wonders on these decals because they were badly yellowed to the point I thought I'm not going to be able to use them. But as soon as you see this white decal go on the caliper, you can see nice bright white. No issues there at all. So money well spent. So a good little tip there. I know people are using nail dryers, but all the ones I find had timers on them of like 90 seconds. So I went for a proper UV lamp. And it's something I will keep in my toolbox as such for future decals. And again, the decal process, same as usual, in the water, onto the model, remove the excess water, hit it with a decal solution, which will be UMP normal. Let them set, we'll let them dry overnight, and we're going to clear coat them to get a nice gloss finish caliper. The LP paint's already glossy, but I want to protect the decals as well. So that's why I thought we'd glossy. But there we go. Decals are all on and set. We've got our water pen from Derwent. Again, if you're looking for any products I use, they're linked in the description of the video. Coated the decal solutions. We'll let that dry overnight. And there we go. Decals looking good. As you see, real bright white. That UV lamp really did a good trick. And I'll pop a link to it in the description below. Right, so we've got some of the Mr. Hobby UV Cut Gloss Clear Coat. Now, this is the spray can one. It's decanted, and we're putting it through the apex, 0.35, 18 psi, and we're going to put a mist coat on to begin with. Let that dry for 10-15 minutes. Then do another mist coat. Let that dry for 10-15 minutes. Then do a bit of a wetter coat. Let that dry. Probably 5 coats in all. And on the 5th coat, we get a nice wet coat on there. And this is after a couple of coats. So we're really starting to get a nice sheen there. But once we get our final wet coat on, it'll start to look the part. And we get that nice glossy caliper look that I was looking for. The reason for the mist coat is this is quite a hot, clear coat. We don't want to melt the decals, so we need to protect them by putting mist coats down before we put our wet coat on. So there we go. There's all our components all unmasked up top. They're all ready for a wash, but we'll do that when we've got them on the car, because I've found putting the wash on now can make handling them a little bit iffy because it's an enamel wash over. Sometimes I use enamel paint. I don't think I have today. All these are all lacquers. But it can make paint remove on your fingers because it's already been reactivated. So we're going to carefully unmask all this caliper, and then we'll come in and have a little look at the end. As you can see, plenty of masking on there. But we should have some nice contrasting colours. And like I say, once we get a wash on there, it should really look the part. And this is, again, highly visible part through the wheels. So hopefully it'll look okay. And there we are. Unmasked. There's our centre. We'll do all the others. These are our fronts and backs. Can't resist a quick dry fit to have a look. How they look. It's a good scale, the 16 scale. Everything's a decent size. Everything looks really good. These calipers and discs look absolutely brilliant. I love how they look. Happy with the colours I've chosen. I think we'd have gone for a bit more of a shiny disc colour and gone for a bit more of a brighter silver. But I think overall, well, you judge for yourself. Here's a picture. I think they look okay. They're not perfect. But once we get a wash into those drilled discs, they shouldn't look too bad. Happy with the Porsche decals, and the red looks really good. And then these are all our components laid out, ready for assembly in part 8. So we've still got quite a lot to go on. Like I say, I just lined them up to get a picture. I thought I might as well share it in the video for you as well. Like I say, we'll be back in part 8. We get all these components on, and literally we're really steamrolling along now to get this build complete. So there we go. A bit of a boring video, loads of masking, loads of painting, but this is where we're at for today.
And there we go, we're going to leave it there today. Like I say, way too much footage to get it all in one. I think what I've shown needed showing, so that's why it's, like I say, I hope you've gleaned a bit of info or a tip or a trick or whatever from whatever I've shown, but it's there as a matter of course. It's a part of the build, and that's why we're in there. So that's us today. Not much else to talk about. We'll be back with part 8 on Monday. That's all filmed, ready to go, so we're all set up there, and we're getting on the road to finishing it. So I think it still might be 2 more parts. I think my estimation of 10 parts at the beginning was probably pretty accurate. But we've done this in just over 3 weeks, and that's pretty good going, I think, if I don't say so myself. So let's cut the waffle out. Let's go straight to it. As always, check out International Scale Model Facebook page and forum, umpretail.com, where you can buy most of the products you'll see in my videos. There's a big list of just in the description of all the products I use. You can click on that, and that will take you over to the forum, and anything I've used is linked over there. Check out my Paul ISM Facebook page and Instagram page, and of course sub to the channel, give a thumbs up and leave a comment. I'm a bit behind on comments, but I am getting through them slowly, and we will get through. I do appreciate, I read every comment. They come through live, they pop up on my phone, and I do read them all. Appreciate all the feedback I get as well. And if you've watched this far today, what is, let's see, what is your favourite Group B rally car or Le Mans car? Let's do that. Let's see who's watching. And if you don't know, just put don't know. Simple as that. There we go. So I'll catch you on Monday for part 8. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.